The TOMY Sonic line was possibly the most fundamentally flawed Sonic toy line as of now. Sure, Resource went out of business before they were able to make Wave 2, and Toy Island kept repackaging the same figures, Jazzwares had the structural integrity of glass, and Jax's plushes look a bit weird. But I think TOMY fumbled the most out of all of them. But what went wrong? If you look at the products they did release, they had pretty alright figures and an incredible plush line. Well, to figure that out, we need to go to the beginning of the TOMY Sonic line. Before TOMY, Jazzwares had the license. Now, Jazzwares was known for a few things: character diversity, articulation, and of course, flimsiness. But that didn't stop people from praising Jazzwares as the best Sonic line for the time. So, when TOMY got the license, people had pretty high expectations considering what Jazzwares had done prior. But, for the first few years, TOMY only made Sonic Boom products. Yeah, back then, Sega wanted Sonic Boom to be successful, and as we all know, it wasn't. So, Sonic Boom products flooded store shelves only for them to sit there. Now you can argue that making only Sonic Boom products was a directive from Sega, and TOMY just had to abide by that. And you'd likely be correct. But, that didn't make TOMY do some of the weird things they're notorious for doing. That's right, I'm talking about the weird variants of characters. During their run, TOMY made a ton of strange variants, such as Oil Tails and Dirty Sonic, among others. Now, there were also variations of plushes, like the big head plushes that I thought were pretty cool. But all in all, this was a strange move on TOMY's end. It just kinda led to them being looked down upon even more. But then, in 2016, 2 years after TOMY got the license, Sonic's 25th anniversary happened, and TOMY finally proved themselves with the best line of Sonic products they'd make: the 25th anniversary line. This line consisted of 4 plushes, technically 5, and 3 figures. The 4 smaller plushes were of Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Robotnik. They were made out of this crushed velvet material, which made them really stand out and be pretty shiny. They were highly praised at the time and still stand today as incredible plushes, and there was a larger classic Sonic that would later get re-released in the Collector's Series line, but we'll get to that. Now we get to the 3 figures, being Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, sadly no Robotnik. These figures were highly praised at the time and are still incredible figures today. Their sculpts, paint, and articulation made them the best 4-inch figures TOMY had made, and would ever make. Now we get to what TOMY went down in history for. Now sure, the other 2 were noteworthy, but this is the main TOMY line that TOMY is recognized for. The Collector's Series line. This is what TOMY should have done from day one. Now they made multiple waves of figures and plushes. Let's start with the figures this time. Now, despite their classic figures, their modern figures were a bit off. First of all, the articulation is clearly lacking compared to the classic figures. And for the first release of these figures, you had to get them in these comic packs. This means that to get the new figure, you also had to re-buy the old figure and get a comic. Now, this is a neat concept, don't get me wrong, but it's a terrible idea to make that be the only way to get the new figure, and this affected the price too. It was roughly $25 per pack, and considering the price of the standalone TOMY figures, you're paying a whole lot more, especially if the only thing you want in the pack is the new figure. Then, back on topic to the figures themselves, they have these weird eyes for Sonic and Knuckles. Now, images of the prototype figures were leaked and released, and they actually look pretty nice, but then when the figures released, what happened? Their eyes are oversized, Knuckles' eyes are kinda slivered, and Sonic is looking up. Sure, you could say that this was done because the Sonic figure had to be bent down a bit so he could stand to accommodate for his heavy spikes, but still, it just does not look the best. Then there's the infamous modern Tails figure. I mean, his head sculpt and paint looks good. His shade of yellow is much more accurate than Jazzwares', but his body proportions, they messed up big time. His legs are going up into his ribs. Now, fun fact, Tomy actually made a Sonic Forces pack that had a earlier release of Tails in some. This is either a prototype or a factory reject that accidentally snuck its way in, but it did also give negative publicity to the figure in the end. They also released a Metal Sonic comic pack, which is probably the best comic pack because both figures were brand new. Although I was never able to find this pack in real life, and unfortunately, I don't own them. The last officially released figures, other than variants and exclusive accessories, is the Zavik and Infinite pack. This is a very interesting pack as it's a figure of an early Infinite design, likely based off a concept art, but it does have a very good Zavik figure with it. It also came with a modern Sonic figure, for whatever reason, but he's nothing new. Honestly, I'd say that this is a pretty good figure pack. It wasn't overpriced, you get 2 new figures, and the price isn't padded with a comic. Not to mention that the figures themselves are pretty good. Now sure, you could make the case that Infinite is inaccurate due to him being based off a concept art, but there's really nothing Tomy could do about that as that's all they had to base the figure off of, considering merchandise takes a pretty large amount of time to create. But let's end off on a high note. This is the best Sonic figure Tomy would ever make. And in my opinion, this is the best figure of Classic Sonic. It is, of course, their deluxe Classic Sonic figure. This thing is immaculate. It has incredible articulation, amazing detail, interchangeable hands and expressions. It even comes with a chili dog and a ring. I feel like this figure does not get enough love or praise, in my opinion. This is the best Classic Sonic figure to have ever been released, even better than Jax's deluxe Sonic figure, in my opinion. Now we get to what I think Tomy did best. Now sure, I did just praise their Sonic figure and their 25th anniversary line, but I feel like this is where Tomy really shined. That being the Collector's Series plushes. Now, they came in an 8-inch scale and a 12-inch scale. Let's take a look at the 12-inch ones first. They released a set of Classic Sonic, Classic Tails, then, as a part of the same wave, but a bit later, released Modern Sonic and Modern Metal Sonic. Although Modern Metal Sonic looks a bit more like Classic Metal Sonic, but we'll get to the reason for that later. These plushes were incredibly well made and incredibly well detailed, and for a while this was really the only Tomy Modern Sonic you could find. For some reason, the 12-inch Modern Sonic was able to be bought off of Amazon and eBay, mainly eBay. Not entirely sure why, but for a period of time that was the only way to really get him. But back on topic, these plushes were incredible, and we got a wave 2, being Shadow, Dark Chow, Knuckles, and Super Sonic. These were just as good as wave 1, if not better. I mean, we got a Dark Chow plush! I know Jax released a Dark Chow plush and has been firing on all cylinders, essentially outdoing every Master Toy partner before them, but I must give credit to Tomy as they did it first. This was a surprise to many Adventures fans such as myself. I couldn't wait to get this Dark Chow plush. Oh yeah, that leads me to my next point. The plushes in this wave were stocked weirdly at stores. I remember only one store would have a character, meaning if they got a new shipment of Tomy 12-inch plushes, it would be a full shipment of just one character. You'd see like 4 Dark Chows in one Target and 4 Shadows in another. Not entirely sure why this was done, but they usually swapped them out every other week, so it was easy to keep track of and get them all. Except for Knuckles. I did not find Modern Knuckles until the week before my year. And Jax had the license for almost a year at this point. I don't exactly know why, but towards the end, Tomy's stuff got harder to find. You'd think it'd be easier to find because they were trying to push out as much Sonic stuff as possible because they wouldn't legally be able to sell it anymore, but we'll discuss that later. For now, we will discuss the 8-inch plushes. The first wave consisted of Classic Sonic, Classic Tails, and released a bit later, but still part of the same wave, Modern Sonic and Modern Metal Sonic. Classic Sonic and Classic Tails were released first for reasons we will discuss later, and they were actually pretty easy to find for a period of time. They were being sold on Amazon, they were pretty easy to find at places like Target and Toys R Us. They were actually really easy to find. And, of course, they were just as top quality as the 12-inch plushes. Same thing for Modern Sonic and Modern Metal Sonic. I was incredibly excited to get my hand on the modern plushes when they released, and they did not disappoint. These are some top quality Sonic plushes, especially for just $15 plushes you go to a store and find. But then we got Wave 2. But I'd consider this to be Tomy's weakest plush wave. It consisted of Classic Laughing Sonic, Classic Knuckles, Modern Tails, and Shadow. Now, Laughing Classic Sonic is a bit of an odd choice. Now, sure, it was an anniversary, so basing things after exclusive pieces of art is, sometimes expected. But most of Shadow's details were just printed on, and it was done pretty cheaply, with the material being kinda rough, as opposed to the soft material that they normally use. So yeah, Shadow is a bit of a letdown, but still, the Classic Knuckles and the Modern Tails plushes are still incredibly good. But, with that said, nothing could have prepared me for the next wave. Another Sonic! Ta-da! I'm just joking, there's more than that. The wave consisted of Sonic, Amy, Vector, Classic Super Sonic, Chow, and the first ever non-prize, actually store-available Eggman plush. Now sure, Eggman, being modern Eggman, had plushes in the past, but they were all UFO plushes or arcade prizes. This was the first, easily available, actually buyable, and essentially main Eggman plush. This is what I was most excited for, because growing up before Tomy, you could not find Eggman plushes anywhere, other than the Toy Network plush, but you had to win that in, crane games and at arcades. So, getting an Eggman plush was not easy, and GE had only made a classic plush. But this wave also had the first Classic Super Sonic plush since the Sonic the Fighter set, and a Chow plush with shiny velvet-like material. It's absolutely amazing. Don't forget about Vector the Crocodile, the man himself got a plush. Now yeah, sure, Amy's good too, and so is the Sonic, but the rest are just immaculate. Tomy really knocked it out of the park with this wave. And this is when Tomy finally got themselves together, as these were easy to find. Every Target had them. They were always in stock. You could even find them in other stores that normally don't even carry Sonic plushes. Now, I usually found mine in the video game section at Target, unlike Jack's who's in the toy aisle now. And these were typically found by the Nintendo Switch stuff. Either that or the aisle after it. These were Tomy's moneymakers. Other than the 25th anniversary line, and other than the brilliant character choices, the plushes themselves were amazing. This is what I consider to be the peak of TOMY Sonic. This is the best it ever got. But that means it all went downhill from here. The next wave consisted of another Sonic, another Modern Tails, Modern Knuckles, Classic Robotnik, Silver, and a Shadow plush that I never saw in real life and I cannot find any pictures of. Modern Knuckles, Classic Robotnik, and Silver are the only new characters to get a plush in this wave. Now, the plushes themselves are really good, don't get me wrong, but that wouldn't stop what would happen next. Tomy lost the Sonic license while these were being sold. That means that these were nearly impossible to find. I only found them once they were in a clearance bin at a Target I usually don't go to if it's pretty far away from me. And that happened a year after these were released. To me, it's sad that Tomy died on this note, as they probably had many more characters in the works that never saw the light of day. officially. But we'll get to that. But what about Sonic Boom? Did Tomy just abandon it? Well, not fully. Tomy released these Boom emoji plushes to try and keep their Sonic Boom line somewhat alive, and these were great plushes and all, but I don't exactly know what the market for these were for. And that's all of Tomy's released Sonic products. Other than the strange variants or repackaging old characters, and sometimes with different accessories, I'd say Tomy had a very good line. One that was very underrated, and I still think it is. But this isn't the end, no. We haven't touched Tomy's long list of unreleased products. Tomy had so much more to offer us, but most of their products got cancelled. Figures of Eggman, Amy, Shadow, and Super Sonic were all planned but then scrapped. I mean, Eggman and Amy were even going to have these metal plates with artwork on them to compensate for Archie comics no longer being used. And from what it looks like, these figures would have been really good. The Eggman pack would have especially been awesome. So, 2020 man from the future here. While I was looking for images of the unreleased products, I discovered a gold mine of never-before-seen Tomy stuff. One of the designers of the TOMY Sonic merchandise uploaded concepts and early prototypes of both released and unreleased products. So, this was completely unplanned and unscripted, but I had to include it in. So, enjoy the slideshow. These were found on a Behance account by the name of Joshua Hoffield. And if you're watching this, I would gladly take any of these prototypes or unreleased figures and plushes off your hands. I'd be happy to. Just send me a comment. But I will provide a link in the description if you want to see the rest of it, as this isn't all of it, this is just what I found the most interesting. So, back to the regular video. As for the Boom emoji plushes, there was an entirely scrapped wave 2 consisting of Shadow and Eggman. And these were actually shown off at Toy Fair that year, which means they probably got pretty close to being released. And as for the plushes, we only know 2 scrapped plushes, Classic Amy and Classic Metal Sonic. As I hinted towards earlier, the Collector's Series was originally only going to be classic. That's why their 12-inch Metal Sonic looks like a classic plush. But one actually saw the light of day, unofficially. So, sometimes, bootleggers get their hands on early or unreleased material and makes knockoffs based off of them. This is an example of a bootlegger making a knockoff of an item that was never released. This is what I'm talking about. This plush, which is commonly sold with a knockoff Tomy Classic Sonic, is the last remains of the cancelled Classic Metal Sonic. I don't know how this happened, but I'm glad it did. Now Tomy Classic Metal Sonic can live on, unofficially. So, that was Tomy's fundamentally flawed Sonic line. It was almost like Murphy's Law with Tomy. The sad part is that Tomy made some really good products, and towards the end, it seemed like they had finally gotten themselves together. But alas, it was too late. I guess you could say they went out with a bang, but considering their last few products became so hard to find, I wouldn't say so. TOMY Sonic ended too soon, and I feel like that's a sentiment we can all agree with. But now we have Jakks Pacific, and Jakks Pacific has been knocking it out of the park with Sonic products. Sure, their plushes are not that great when it compares to TOMY, but everything else is great. Although I'm sad TOMY lost the license, Jakks has more than made up for it. It's kinda like TOMY walked so Jakks could run. Although I do miss TOMY quality plushes. Jakks plushes with their weird flat spikes to the side, it just doesn't sit well with me. I mean, their Sonic movie plushes are a perfect example of what Jakks can do when they're not sticking to this weird style. But I guess we do have GE for top quality plushes. Plus, Jakks usually lessens their weird style when it's a fan-wanted character, such as Mighty Ray. Even if TOMY Sonic ended too soon, it did pave the way for Jakks Pacific's Sonic line, which is the best Sonic line as of now.